Good morning, students. Mr. Young here with Chapter 6, Lesson 4. As you may well have guessed with a title like The Final Years, the revolution is winding down with sweet, sweet victory. I can only imagine the burden lifted, not only from Washington, but all his soldiers as the war ended. There's nothing in my entire life that I experienced like homecoming from war. I can only imagine how awesome it was to come home victorious. Let's talk about how the war ended. Okay, so we start with Yorktown. In the last lesson, we learned about the battles in the South. Patriot forces basically chased British forces northward. When Washington found out Cornwallis was headed north, he went south and more or less checked him, and Cornwallis was forced to sort of hunker down in Yorktown. Turns out that was a bad idea because he cornered himself. He ended up being trapped in Yorktown. So here's how this went down. Washington had been up north staging for an attack on New York, as in like New York City. There was significant British force there, and Washington had assembled a significant force himself with the help of French forces that had newly arrived. Washington was waiting for another French fleet to arrive, but found out that this second French fleet was heading south towards Cornwallis. So Washington and his French allies secretly left New York and marched down to Yorktown. Yorktown was surrounded. You can see here in the map. You've got the French, you've got the American lines, and the French fleet. They laid siege to Yorktown, which is military talk for they didn't let anything in or out. So no food, no medicine, no supplies, no reinforcements were getting into Yorktown. Cornwallis and his forces were stuck there. Uh, Nothing was getting in and out. After the Patriots captured some of the key defenses, Cornwallis knew he was done and was forced to surrender on October 19th, 1781. He took it pretty hard. You can watch this video for the details. You can see there's a whole lot of salt being thrown around. They were pretty upset by their defeat. Let's bump down to the Treaty of Paris. So the British still held some major cities like New York City, Savannah, Charlestown, but the defeat at Yorktown signaled that this war with their colonies was just too much trouble. Representatives were sent to France, where a peace was brokered. Great Britain would recognize the United States as an independent nation and withdraw all troops. The United States, in turn, needed to pay all the debts owed to British merchants, like for all that tea they dumped in the harbor and things like that, and also return land that they had taken from loyalists in the colonies. These weren't bad terms for the USA. It all seemed pretty reasonable. As such, Congress ratified the Treaty of Paris, or approved it, and the final draft was signed on September 3rd, 1783. The war is won. All right. AAR, After Action Report. So in the military, we called what you sports fans might call a post-game analysis. We called it an after-action report, or just AAR for short. In this case, how the heck did a gaggle of colonists defeat one of the most powerful militaries in the world? In the simplest terms, we'll put it in outline form. Home field advantage. So the colonists knew the land and the British didn't. The British had to send supplies all the way from Britain across the ocean. Supplies, men, it all had to come from all the way over in Britain, whereas the supply lines of the United States were short because we were in the United States. We also had wilderness fighting experience there in the colonies. They knew the land. There was also the fact that the colonies had help. Initially, it was various international leaders, like we talked about that Prussian von Steuben and Washington's personal counsel, Marquis de Lafayette. And guys like that. And then Spain and France ended up entering a war against Britain as well, and those were pretty much they were pretty big. They're pretty big, factors in why the colonies would win. Also, the fact that the revolution was a grassroots movement. What does this mean? Basically, it's hard to crush an ideal shared by a large portion of the population that lived here. And as it was a people's movement, they were determined and motivated. They were fighting for reasons they believed in, not reasons that someone above them believed in. And at times they were literally defending their homes and things like that. So home field advantage was pretty big. After years of war, the United States earned her independence. It was a hard fight, a real underdog story, with a surprise ending. No one thought that the colonies would win. But this is really just the beginning. The course is called American Nation, and the American Nation was more or less just born in this lesson. Freedom was won, but what do you do with it? In Chapter 7, we start to learn about the first steps of the now independent United States of America. Hashtag America. Inhale freedom, exhale patriotism. All right, let's bump onto the quiz. We'll take a quick look. Here we go. There's a couple of multiple choice. You have multiple attempts. Multiple choice aren't anything special. Question 3 requires you to actually write some sentences. In the lesson, we talked about the reasons the colonies were able to defeat Britain. Home field advantage, they had to help, grassroots movement. Which of these 3 reasons do you think was the most important and why? Please answer with one or more complete sentences. More is always better, but give me a couple sentences on which one and why, and you'll get full credit. All right. If you need anything, please let me know. Shoot me a Canvas message, give me a call, email, whatever. I'm here for you at all times. And let me know if you need anything. Have a good day, all right?